Good morning, and welcome to Tuesdays with the Pilgrim, as we continue reading The Shepherd of the Hills by Harold Bell Wright. Chapter 4. A Chat with Aunt Molly. When the stranger looked from his window the next morning, the valley was still wrapped in its gray blanket. But when he and his host came from the house after breakfast, the sun had climbed well above the ridge, and save a long, loosely twisted rope of fog that hung above the distant river, the mists were gone. The city man exclaimed with delight at the beauty of the scene. As they stood watching the sheep, white specks in the distance, climbing out of the valley where the long shadows still lay, to the higher sunlit pastures, Mr. Matthews said, "We all been a-talking about you this morning, Mr. Howitt, and we'd like mighty well to have you stop with us for a spell. If I understood right, you were just out for your health anyway, and you'll be a long ways, sir, before you find a healthier place than right here. We ain't got much such as you used to, I know, but what we got here is yours, and we'd be a-proud to have you make yourself at home for as long as you'd like to stay. You see, it's been a good while since we met up with anybody like you, and we count it a real favor to have you." Mr. Howitt accepted the invitation with evident pleasure, and soon after the mountaineer rode away to Bear Creek on his quest for a man to herd sheep. Young Matt had already gone with his team to the field on the hillside west of the house, and the brown pony stood at the gate ready for Sammy Lane to return to her home on Dewey Bald. "I'd like best in the world to stay, Aunt Molly," she said in answer to Mrs. Matthews' protest. "But you know there is no one to feed the stock, and besides, Mandy Ford will be back sometime today." The older woman's arm was around the girl as they went down the walk. "You must come over real often now, honey. You know it won't be long till you'll be a-leaving us for good. How do you reckon you'll like being a fine lady and living in the city with them big folks?" The girl's face flushed, and her eyes had that wide, questioning look, as she answered slowly, "I don't know, Aunt Molly. I ain't never seen a sure enough fine lady. I reckon them city folks is a heap different from us, but I reckon they're just as human. It would be nice to have lots of money and pretties, but somehow I feel like there's a heap more than that to think about. Anyhow," she added brightly, "I ain't going for quite a spell, and you know, Preachin' Bill says there ain't no use to worry about the choppin' till the dogs has treed the coon. I'll be sure to come over every day." Mrs. Matthews kissed the girl, then standing at the gate, watched until the pony and rider had disappeared into the forest. Later, Aunt Molly, with a woman's fondness for a quiet chat, brought the potatoes she was preparing for dinner to sit with Mr. Howitt on the porch. "I declare, I don't know what we'll do about Sammy," she said. "I just can't bear to think of her going away." The guest, feeling that some sort of reply was expected, asked, "Is the family moving from the neighborhood?" "No, sir. There ain't no family to move, just Sammy and her pa. And Mr. Jim Lane won't never leave this country. You see, Ollie Stewart's uncle, his father's brother that is, ain't got no children of his own, and he wrote for Ollie to come to live with him in the city. He's to go to school and learn the business, foundry and machine shops, or something like that it is, and if the boy does what's right, he's to get it all some day. Ollie and Sammy has been promised ever since the talk first began about his going, but they'll wait now until he gets through his schooling. It'll be mighty nice for Sammy marrying Ollie, but we'll miss her awful. The whole country will miss her too. She's just the life of the neighborhood, and everybody knows how there never was another girl like her. Poor child, she ain't had no mother since she was a little trick, and she has always come to me for everything like, we being such close neighbours and all. But law, sir, I ain't a-blaming her a mite for going, with her daddy a-running with that ornery Wash Gibbs the way he does." Again the man felt called upon to express his interest. "Is Mr. Lane in business with this man Gibbs?" "Law, no. That is, don't nobody know about any business. I reckon it's all on account of those old bald knobbers. They used to hold their meetin's on top of Dewey yonder, and folks do say a man was burned there once because he told some of their secrets. Well, Jim and Wash's daddy and Wash all belonged, though Wash himself wasn't much more than a boy then. And when the government broke up the gang, old man Gibbs was killed, and Jim went to Texas. And it was there that Sammy's ma died. When Jim come back, it wasn't long before he was mighty thick again with Wash and his crowd down the river, and he been that way ever since. There's them that say it's the same old gang, what's left of 'em, and some thinks too that Jim and Wash knows about old Dewey mine." Mr. Howitt, remembering his conversation with Jed Holland, asked encouragingly, "Is this mine a very rich one?" "Don't nobody rightly know about that, sir," answered Aunt Molly. "This is how it was. Away back when the Injuns was a-making trouble 'cause the government was a-moving them west to the territory, this old man Dewey lived up there somewhere on that mountain. He was a mighty queer old fella, didn't mix up with the settlers at all, except Uncle Josh Henley's boy, who wasn't right smart, and didn't nobody know where he come from, nor nothing. But all the same, 'twas him that warned the settlers of the trouble, and helped them all through it, scouting and such. And one time when they was about out of bullets, and didn't have nothing to make more out of, Colonel Dewey took some of the men up to some mines up on the mountain yonder in the night, and when they got back they was just loaded down with lead. But he wouldn't tell nobody where he got it, and as long as he was with 'em, the men didn't dare tell. Yes, sir, them two was killed soon after by the Injuns, and when the trouble was finally over, old Dewey disappeared, and ain't never been heard tell of since. They say that mine is somewhere in Big Cave, but nobody never found it, though there's been them that says bald knobbers used the cave to hide their stuff in, and that's how Jim Lane and Wash Gibbs knows where it is. It's all a mighty queer. You can see for yourself that Lost Creek down yonder just sinks clean out of sight all at once. There must be a big hole in there somewhere." Aunt Molly pointed with her knife to the little stream that winds like a thread of light down into the hollow. "I tell you, sir, these hills is pretty to look at, but there ain't much here for a girl like Sammy. I don't blame her a mite for wanting to leave. It's a mighty hard place to live, Mr. Howitt. It's a dangerous, too, sometimes." "The city has its hardships and its dangers, too, Mrs. Matthews. Life there demands almost too much at times. I often wonder if it's worth the struggle." "I guess that's so," replied Aunt Molly. "But it don't seem like it could be so hard as it is here. I tell Mr. Matthews we've clean forgot the ways of civilized folk altogether, though I suppose we've done as well as most, and we hadn't ought to complain." The old scholar looked at the sturdy figure in its plain calico dress, at the worn hands busy with their homely task, at the patient, kindly face across which time had plowed many a furrow, in which to plant seeds of character and worth. He thought of other women who had sat with him on hotel verandas at fashionable watering places, women gowned in silks and laces, women whose soft hands knew no heavier task than the filmy fancy work they toyed with, and whose greatest care, seemingly, was that time should leave upon their faces no record of its passing years. "And this is the stuff," he said to himself, "that makes possible the civilization that produces them." Aloud he said, "Do you ever talk of going back to your old home?" "No, sir, not now." She rested her wet hands idly upon the edge of the pan of potatoes, and turned her face toward the clump of pines. "We used to think of going back sometimes. Seemed like at first I couldn't stand it. Then the children come, and every time we laid one of them over there, I thought less about leaving. Until now we never talk about it no more. There was our girl too, Mr. Howitt. No, sir, we won't never leave these hills now. Oh, you had a daughter too? I understood from Mr. Matthews that your children were all boys. Aunt Molly worked a few moments longer in silence, then arose and turned toward the house. Yes, sir, there was a girl. She's buried under that biggest pine you see off there, a little to one side. We don't never talk about her. Mr. Matthews can't stand it. Seems like he ain't never been the same since that happened. 'Tain't natural for him to be so rough and short. He's just as good and kind inside as any man ever was could be. He's real taken with you, Mr. Howitt, and I'm mighty glad you're going to stop a spell, for it will do him good. If it hadn't been for Sammy Lane running in every day or two, I don't guess he could have stood it at all. I sure don't know what we'll do now that she's a-going away. Then there's that at the ranch in Mutton Hollow. But I guess I better not tell you much about that. I wish Mr. Matthews would, though. Maybe he will. You know so much more than us. I know most you could help us or tell us about things. And that's the end of Chapter 4. We'll continue next week with Chapter 5, Just Nobody. Until then, take care, stay safe, and God bless.